All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Citygram, brought to you by the Peer Network at Code for America. My name is Garrett Jacobs. I am the Peer Network Coordinator here at Code for America. Help organize events like this and facilitate conversations to help you all with your efforts to improve innovation within city government. So with that, today we'll be discussing the new application coming out of the fellowship this year called Citygram. It is coming out of the Charlotte team along with assistance from our team in Lexington. So we have some great representatives here who helped design and come up with the application, as well as some folks who will be talking about the sustainability of the application in its long term. So with that, I just want to introduce everyone, and then I'll let them take it from there, and then we can ask questions. So just for all of you viewing the broadcast in the website, feel free to just ask questions at any time right below the viewing screen, and I'll kind of queue those up towards the end of the presentation. So with that, I just want to introduce our speakers. First, we have Tiffany Chu. Tiffany's a designer, researcher, and urbanist. She's led the UX research at Zipcar, consulted with Continuum on innovation, and she's also mapped over 100 street vendors in Vietnam, crafted 3D models of Pixar, written for Dwell, has a background in architecture and urban planning. And Tiffany's been on the Charlotte team this year. Danny Whalen joins us as well. He's a web developer from Phoenix. He's passionate about building communities around open source software. He maintains and contributes to a variety of open source projects and has helped run local Ruby user groups. And most recently has crafted web applications with Integral software. We have Livian Yen, who's a front-end developer and web designer. Most recently, she apprenticed at Tulia as a user interface engineer, and her passion lies in interactive art, data visualization, and environmental empathy. Livian is a very talented artist with a background in oil and urban design, and Tiffany has been on this year's Lexington team. And then we have Jim Van Fleet joining us from Charlotte, and Jim is the Charlotte co-captain, Code for Charlotte co-captain. He is also co-organizer of Startup Weekend in Charlotte, as well as the founder and owner of It's Bespoke, a software consultancy that brings cloud to small and mid-sized businesses in the Carolinas. His background is an experienced software architect, as well as an expert on Ruby on Rails. He will play a very key role in the sustainability of Citygram, which you'll hear about shortly. And he just his second son just turned a month old, so congratulations to him. So with that, I'd like to hand it off to Tiffany to get us rolling. Tiffany, you're still on mute.
Okay, great. How's this?
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us, Garrett. It's a pleasure to be here and share what we've been working on for the past year. So what we're going to do today is give you guys a sense of what Citygram is, how it works, and then how you can get involved. And we've been hearing from a lot of you and a lot of cities and Gov tech people in general about how they've been excited about the process of Citygram. So we'd love to just take you through what we've been up to. So this is Charlotte City Hall. It's where Danny and I spent a bunch of our time back in February, and just wanted to double check. Can everyone see the screen share? Is that working all right for you guys? Okay, I see nods, so I'll continue. So this is our kind of the birthplace of Citygram. We were given the charter with the City of Charlotte to do a project that combined both community engagement as well as open data. And we work very, very closely with the Department of Neighborhood and Business Services as well as the Innovation and Technology team in Charlotte. So what we decided to do is we decided to, take a glance at where Charlotte is today. And what they're doing right now is they're currently, as we speak, drafting their open data policy and preparing to launch Charlotte's first ever open data portal. And this is really exciting to us because it felt like all the momentum around open data was just getting started, and we could really capitalize on that momentum to also do a project that really showcased the value of open data. So we started with what we know best, which is talking to our communities and the citizens in Charlotte. So this is my teammate Danny speaking with Ricky. Ricky Hall is a seasoned neighborhood organization leader in the Reed Park neighborhood in Charlotte, and he was here telling us all of the topics that are really important for him to know as someone who is looked up to in the community for what's happening, what's going on, what's going to be developed in his neighborhood. And as we dug deeper, we really started to hear some of the challenges that he was experiencing. So what he told us, if you advance to the next slide, Danny, what he told us was that he really wanted to know what was coming into his neighborhood in a much more proactive way so that they could act on it, instead of being reactive when a development comes into their neighborhood that they don't want. So we realized that this was something we heard from a variety of people. So we went around to everyone we could in Charlotte and asked, how do you find out what's happening in your area today? And the places that came up were word of mouth, while I'm walking the dog, this is how I hear about stuff, the local paper, a city liaison if my neighborhood even has one, and the city website, but only if I know where to look. So then we saw this really big opportunity. The city has a ton of raw data in many departments that's not easily discoverable, and maybe that is something that resonates with you and your city as well. Most cities have a ton of just civic information that's hiding in various departments that no one really knows how to get to. So our approach was, how can we make this raw data not only open, but also meaningful to people? So this question really started to drive us. How can open data be a platform for community engagement? And that's where Citygram comes in. So Citygram is a platform for allowing citizens and residents and communities to subscribe to their city. It uses the power of open data to inform you of the things you care about and where you care about them. So this is kind of our vision for Citygram, and we'd love to dive deeper and give you a little peek at how it works today. So I'm going to hand it over to my teammate Livian, who will now be explaining how Citygram works.
Great. All right, so before we dive deeper into the how-to side of Citygram, I wanted to go through a video demo for those of you who are not familiar with using the project. All right, take it from the beginning. All right, so here you'll see several topics that are available based on the open data in your city. And you can enter in an aspect you care about, say work or home, and select a radius of the area that you would like to receive updates within. So for example, for this radius, based on last week, you might get about 13 Citygrams for the upcoming week. And then currently we have text notifications and a weekly email digest where you can receive all of the updates that happen in 1 week in one email. Oh, turn into full screen. Okay. So today we're going to talk about how Citygram works, why it was built the way it's built, and how you can get involved. And what this really boils down to is designing for the community. So now I'm going to pass it on to my teammate and the software engineer, Danny Whalen.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I think I just want to say real quick, thank you all for joining us. And then I wanted to expand a bit about this notion of designing for the community and what that meant to us. And really what it means is giving an opportunity for cities to work with the community, brigades for instance, to work together around open data to build meaningful things, and then for that to feed back into the city's open data plans. And there are a number of ways we hope that that happens. So the three goals of Citygram have been, from the beginning, to increase citizen engagement. This is something that the city of Charlotte was very keen on from the beginning, and so we looked for ways to do that. We wanted the tool to allow people to be proactive and not reactive to what's going on in their city and in their neighborhood. And then we wanted to demonstrate the capabilities of open data portals. It's likely that if your city has opened up data, there's sort of been that period afterwards where you're sort of wondering what's going to happen with the data and what people are going to do with it. And we wanted to use, we wanted to build a tool that actually answered that question in certain ways, and used modern open source web tools to do it. So understanding the constraints of a problem like this is very important. And there are just sort of three high-level constraints that we wanted to go over in this talk. And the first one is use cases. So the civic applications that are built are not actually the intended use case for open government data in most situations. Governments, this data is designed around internal processes that need to happen to keep the city moving forward, and that's important. But we hope that through projects like Citygram and other projects happening around open data, that cities will start to take the feedback from the consumers of open data and let that sort of play into how they collect data, how they store data, and how they publish data. So we can have this broader network of people with interesting use cases. And then speed. So government data systems just are not generally designed to be fast. And that's okay, right? They have a specific purpose internally, and usually it doesn't need to happen particularly fast. But when you build applications on top of this data, speed becomes important. And when you're working on top of slower systems, it should influence the design of your application as it did with Citygram. Then cadence is really an important part of consuming open data. So this data reflects the processes through which it was created. And what that means is that maybe the process is to collect paper forms for the month, and then at the end of the month input them all into the database, and then there's a manual sort of batch process that publishes them to an open data portal. And that kind of cadence is not ideal for an application like Citygram. What is ideal is a streaming flow of data. So maybe someone submits the form online, and it's then approved and published as it happens. There may be a lag between the time that it's submitted and the time that it's approved, but once it's ready to be published, it just goes directly into the open data portal. So we're trying to sort of avoid batch processes and have a clean streaming flow of data out into the open data portal so that it can be consumed and used in applications like Citygram. So this is the architecture of Citygram. We won't spend a whole lot of time on it, except that everything starts with the departments and the data that they have. And then that data can either move into an open data portal, be published to an open data portal, or in certain cases, if that's not feasible or it's going to take some time to do that, it's still possible to integrate into Citygram. And then this extract, transform, load step, what we're calling those, that's one or many applications that stand on their own and transform the data from that's pulled out of an open data portal or directly from a department's data source, and transforms it into a data format called GeoJSON, which is a sort of a web-based format that allows you to transform geographic or to transmit geographic information. And so those adapter pieces live in their own applications, and then Citygram talks directly to those applications. And Citygram only needs to know what GeoJSON is and how to read it. And then from there, it can look up the subscriptions that people have made and see which events intersect those subscriptions, and send them a message according to their desired channel, text, email. We have some more in the works. All right, so how can you integrate your open data with Citygram? And this is the question we're trying to answer on this webinar today. And there's a number of ways to do it, and we designed Citygram to be as flexible as we could be. Right. So really the driver of integrating data into Citygram is trying to meet citizen needs. So we want to prioritize the data that we integrate based on what citizens would like, the demand from citizens for this data and for these notifications. So reach out, talk to your brigades, talk to your citizens, and see what's interesting to them. And then we really need data that's consistently updated. So if this kind of goes back to the cadence, if there's, it's not necessarily about the frequency. Sometimes certain processes just don't happen that often. And sometimes they do happen very frequently, but it's important that you have that streaming flow. And then it really, really helps if this data is accessible via an API, meaning that we can access this data in a machine-readable format over the internet. And JSON is sort of the preferred format here, but there's enough flexibility in the architecture of Citygram for really any format to be transformed into GeoJSON, as long as you have both a time component and a geographic component. And the time component is important because we need to be able to ask the API for the most recent events. So every 10 minutes, Citygram goes and talks to your system and says, we'd like to see the latest events. And then if there are any new events that your API is returning, Citygram will then store them off in its own database and send out the notifications to the appropriate subscribers. So this is an example of really great contextual data. So this is contextual data about land development projects in the city of Charlotte. And having a page for a particular land development project or rezoning or 311 service request in your city is a really great way to give citizens something to bookmark and keep an eye on a particular event that's happening. And for Citygram, it's important to be able to link to these specific pages about a project. So if your page something like this, where a notification can send them a link so that they can bookmark that and keep coming back to it, that's really great. And Seattle has done a great job at this, and so has Charlotte. Right. So here's an example of some raw data that Charlotte is publishing to civicdata.com, and these are land development permits. And you can tell it's just, this is really, really rich data, but it's not particularly accessible. I wouldn't be able to tell which of these records were interesting to me or were applicable without really digging into the data a bit. And so if we were to pull that data out of Civic Data's API, it would look something like this. And this is JSON. It's just tabular JSON where it has some contextual data that we think is meaningful to citizens. So Citygram doesn't, we don't want to pass all of the data about a particular city process in the notification itself. Really what we're looking for is just enough information to know, for a person to know whether or not they'd like more information. That's sort of the threshold that we're shooting for with these notifications. So we might grab the project name, a description, the URL back to the city's webpage detailing that project, and an address to provide some context in the notification. Right. And then we can sort of turn that machine speak into human speak by writing out a natural language template that has some sort of friendly language. The friendlier the better, really, is we just want this to be able to, at a glance, be able to read, get an idea for what's going on, and then provide a URL if it sounds like something they would want to know more about. And then those get sent through as an SMS or an email and a couple of other formats. All right. So all of this, the shape of the notifications, the natural language templating, the subscription process, and the links, this was all really designed to fit the needs of people engaged in their neighborhoods, or that wanted to be engaged in their neighborhoods but really didn't know how. They wanted to stay on top of their neighborhoods, but sort of searching through large swaths of raw data just wasn't a realistic thing for them. So Citygram tries to bridge that gap and make it very accessible to understand what's going on around you and stay on top of things. All right. So far, we have Citygram running, some demo Citygrams running in Lexington, Kentucky, Seattle, Washington, of course, Charlotte. New York City has a Citygram set up, and this has been great. It's been a great source of user testing and getting feedback from users, integrating with different types of data sources and learning about how Citygram could be even more flexible and plug into different types of data sources, and how can we do that easily. And so what we're starting to see is that maybe Citygram is more of a platform than the sort of traditional Code for America approach to applications, which is we write some open source software, and then your city forks that software, customizes it for your city, and then redeploys it and manages their own deployment. So that has a lot of implications in terms of sustainability in particular. Just one moment. And the goal with Citygram as a platform is largely to solve that sustainability problem to the greatest extent that we can. And if there is sort of this one Citygram handling the data for many cities, it gives us the flexibility to sort of share the costs between the cities, to not have that sort of undifferentiated heavy lift that each city has to do of redeploying. In this case, we would have one application deployed, and then you could go to city/Charlotte or /New York and get to whichever city you were interested in hearing about. And so Citygram as a platform is the approach we have wanted to take, and it's turning into a reality now, and we're getting a lot of good feedback on it. All right. Real quickly, I wanted to expand on the adapter layer, and that adapter layer, it is a bit of a technical hurdle, but we've designed it to be really, really minimal. And one of the ways we minimized that barrier is by writing some software to help create the adapters. And the software that we wrote is called Spyglass. We won't go into a whole lot of detail, but this is a conversation that we like for brigades to be having a big part in. So the more people we can get, as we integrate more and more data sets, having more and more experience around what sort of building an API adapter looks like, transforming some format into GeoJSON so that Citygram can consume it, we can build better and better tools and make that easier and easier. All right. The key here is just really starting small. Citygram isn't designed to necessarily open your data for you, so we'll need that data to be opened, and there are a couple of ways we can do that. The first is in one of the so we just want to inch towards automation and find ways to get that opened up and then build adapter systems on top of it. All right. We're going to skip over. This is some details about the Lexington process for integrating with Citygram. And they were really the first consumers of the integration side of Citygram, and we learned a lot from that, and that fed back into Citygram's design. And so, for instance, in terms of cadence, they publish data twice an hour, which is great. The more frequently you can publish data, the better. All right. So we designed it to be flexible. And really, whatever automation or ETL processes you have at your disposal will work, as long as the end product is Citygram compliant GeoJSON. So it's really important that you get to know data sets, and really what that means is understand what the data is saying, so that we can effectively communicate it in human language. All right. So we want to take this and make it meaningful, which is not terribly difficult, but it's important, and it's the details that matter here. All right, so you can go ahead and try it out at citygram.org right now, and then as we continue building this out through the remainder of the fellowship and beyond, which you'll hear about in a little bit, this will just grow and be more and more useful as we onboard more data sets. All right, so there's some documentation at the Code for America on the Code for America repo, where we've started documenting what it means from the integration side to work with Citygram. And this documentation, if you find any issues or you're running into any problems, please reach out to us, and we'll do whatever we can to get in, in the best shape as possible. All right, so I want to turn over to Jim. Is the co-captain of the Charlotte Brigade. So Tiffany and I have been working in Charlotte for the year, and it's been a fantastic experience. And a lot of why our experience was so especially with Charlotte Brigade. There was clearly a demand for people really wanted to really excited about getting in and helping the city. So we've been honored to work with Jim and Jill. And Jim's on the call with us today. And moving forward with Citygram is in large part going to be Jim and the Charlotte Brigade taking this to the next level. And we're working with Code for America to figure out the best way to move forward, and Jim is going to tell us his thoughts about this and what the best way for that he sees for Citygram to be useful for many cities, as well as Charlotte. So Jim, I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, thanks very much, Danny. I heard you say some nice things about me, and then some other parts of it broke up. So maybe you can tell me what you actually said when we get off the call. I wonder, yeah, it's all right. I wonder if you could bring up the slide about the architecture that shows Citygram vis-a-vis the ETL process. As the city of Charlotte was preparing its application for the fellowship, we did not at that time have a brigade, and so our process of participating in the civic technology community has happened hand in hand with the fellowship going through its process inside City Hall. And as a citizen of Charlotte who cares a lot about the city, and I've spent a lot of time kind of in doing community building type role here, it's been absolutely amazing to watch just how these different forces and factors and individuals all play a part in making improving lives in cities using technology, and it's just such an inspiring thing to be a part of it. And I'm really glad that we get to represent what we've learned, both as a brigade and as a organization, about what it means to develop and operate Citygram. It's a really exciting thing to be able to share that with the country. I want to kind of underline a couple of things that we know from Danny mentioned them in his portion of the presentation. Every piece of software the results are a marriage between the software code that operates it and the data that it gathers and operates over. Unlike a lot of what the Code for America fellowships have produced in the past, where a vast majority of the value is in the software that's written, which leads to the redeploy many times model. Let's take this really intelligent piece of software that's been written, and let's make sure that you have a copy of it for your city. One of the fascinating things about this process is that as strictly designed, look how small that little orange box is that Citygram is, and it's really only performing one piece of duty, and there's a wonderfully rich amount of design that has gone into that piece, a lot of very thoughtful design, but it is still only a very small portion of what really animates Citygram, what makes it live. You'll notice here that there's two columns here that represent, probably for a lot of the people that are on this call, some big question marks for their city. The city of Charlotte is still defining its open data policy. Certainly, that is a process that has taken some time. It's involved many conversations of lots of different kinds of varieties, as many new concepts inside government are apt to do. We've had a chance to play our part from the citizen perspective in those kinds of conversations. There's also a point at which, okay, those processes reach their natural conclusion, which is publishing to an open data portal, or just a marshaling of it all together outside of any such portal. Then it becomes kind of a technical matter. Okay, now we have data that's available in some format. We need to produce the technical work necessary to perform this extract, transform, and load step, and do our own city-by-city based communication with Citygram to enable our use of the Citygram platform. So one of the things that I think is so wonderful about what Danny has planned and executed here is that the work that is done at that extract, transform, and load stage, in terms of how it's done technically, is one of the most inclusive and least prescriptive technical pieces of work that are possible. And what that means, so taking off my technologist hat and putting on my community developer hat, I'll note that that is one of the single most important things that can animate the development of a community brigade. And so we're really excited here in Charlotte to be able to kind of use the breadth and depth of what we've learned as community organizers, what we've learned in developing our own brigade, which we're very proud to be one of the largest brigades in our 9 months of operation, certainly one of, if not the fastest growing brigade in history. Combining that with the services that we may be able to provide, describe, or the consulting that we can provide to governments, that is not doing it to governments, but that's my background, that's my profession. The combination of services and the history and what we've learned from doing it in Charlotte, and we're certainly proud to have been the birthplace of this particular technology, and we love Tiffany and Danny, and we're grateful to have them back to town at least a few more times before they're on to work with transit mix, like the last I heard. So if that means that it is time for us to step up and figure out how exactly we're going to participate in moving forward with Citygram, we're very excited to do that. The precise formation we are going to be working with Code for America to determine. I think there's a certain level of control and maintenance that is appropriate for Code for America to maintain. What exactly services is the Charlotte Brigade going to be providing, and in what capacities? Those are questions that we want to work through a little bit internally before we present a concrete plan to the public at large. But we are certainly inviting signups. We do have a plan. We know our cast of characters that we're going to have moving forward. We are going to be continuing development and maintenance, and so the future of Citygram is very bright. And at this point, we'll be asking for questions. And I will try to show a picture of a dancing zebra, because I think those questions are going to take a little while to come in.
And I'll just jump in. I don't know if we actually, I think it was linked to, but if you're interested in Citygram, please go to citygram.org and fill out the form on that page so that we can reach out to you and help you find some next steps to getting Citygram integrated in your city.
That was much more productive than my plan.
I know the dancing zebra is amusing as well. Thanks everyone for the presentation and kind of diving into both the architecture and process behind it. Yeah, I think it's really showing through all of y'all's enthusiasm based on the experience that creating that ecosystem around the application and the process is a very important one. So while we are talking about how other cities can bring Citygram to them, it's also very important to continue creating an ecosystem around what this is. Making sure there is a group that goes out and asks people, in your towns, in your cities, in your counties, what information they really want to see, so you can actually figure out best and prioritize what open data to actually open up and then feed into Citygram itself. And creating that community of practice is really important. And as Jim alluded to, there wasn't even a brigade before this process got started, and now they're growing incredibly quickly. Mainly, I think, because there is one, a lot of energy, but also a very great tool to kind of drive home that everyone can plug into. So with that, if I could ask maybe Jim and Danny, what would be the ideal kind of bag that a city could kind of bring to y'all that would be best for getting Citygram kind of wrapped up? Like what would they have to kind of bring to the table to make it most easily deployable? Not going to say redeployable, but deployable.
So I think it's the data to start. It really is about the quality of your data. Citygram in your city is only ever going to be as good as your data. So the more context your data has about what's going on and how it's happening, the better it is. If you have having links to city pages that explain the project in greater depth and can expand on that contextual data and are something that a citizen can come back to and keep checking on is really critical. If you, for a really great example of this, go to Seattle's Open Data Portal, which I think is data.seattle.gov, if I'm remembering correctly. And if you look at, you can kind of filter by their tabular data sets. And one of the columns, so they have lots of good contextual data about what happened or what the project is, where it's happening. And then one of those columns is actually a URL that points to the city's webpage that explains in depth what's going on for someone to bookmark. And that's just really important. But if your city isn't quite there, that's okay, because what we're seeing is Citygram trying to set up Citygram with your city's data. For instance, in New York, so Chris Wong is the Brigade captain in New York, or one of the co-captains with Beta NYC. Just really, really cool stuff going on out there. And they've been working with Citygram there, and the traffic incident data is what they're using. What they're finding is a lot of the traffic incident notifications that they're getting really don't have much contextual data to them at all. Some of the columns just say unspecified and don't have any indication of what of why the accident happened or what were the circumstances. And so that's now feedback they can give to the city about their open data and how they can enrich their open data and make it more useful. Jim, do you have anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I'd say that there are a couple of different classes of assets that I think a government with a bag of them would be a great candidate to include in an initial cohort. The first would be an existing open data portal. That's going to be helpful. For reasons Danny mentioned, that means that at least one of those steps is going to have less variance about it than most, and either through our own engineering or through solicited volunteerism, we might be able to get some of that connection made for you. I want to strike again one of those notes that Garrett struck. I think describing this as an ecosystem is exactly right. This is one of the potentially kind of bellwether type projects to demonstrate what open data is capable of. It's been frustrating to me to describe it as just GPS and the weather, the weather service, because those have been so commercialized. People don't think about it as something that, like, oh, the citizens produce this. So this has a chance to play in that space, and we'd love to help demonstrate that. The other would be the kind of dedicated group of local volunteers with an interest in open data. If you have such a group, while we wouldn't necessarily be able to guarantee any kind of timely results, what we can do is we can serve as a community of support and training and a base of advocacy to enable those citizens to have what can be a challenging conversation with government. It's an interesting scenario. In Charlotte, we were very fortunate to have a lot of forward-thinking public servants, and they've been tireless and wonderful in their advocacy for this program. There is still resistance. That's a reality. And but getting a volunteer to understand what the mechanisms are, who the players are that are involved, what are the concerns, that's a conversation that has a chance to bear real fruit beyond just this program. So I think that we would definitely want to know if either of those is the case, and then obviously if you've got any kind of budget, I would love for you to fill out the form. But I'm sure that we've got a chance to figure out some of those issues kind of off camera, and this is certainly on our minds going forward. It's one of my foremost concerns is figuring out where exactly do we start. But I know for sure that regardless of any of the questions about how do we make sure people can earn a livelihood off this, getting the results is going to be coming from those first two. If you're one of those first two categories, some kind of results are possible, either making good connections for you or providing some of those initial technical integrations that can serve as a model for you to either use inside your city or inside your existing brigade.
Great, thanks, Jim. So I just want to start going towards questions from the audience. Just to address one, first I'll make sure that all the links that we referenced and videos I will send out to everyone attending, so those will all be available, as well as the slides that were used today. We have a question from Michelle in Redwood City, and she wants to know, with other applications like Building Eye that also provide notifications to residents, what are kind of some of the why Citygram? Why is Citygram one of the best implementations for notifications for city residents? I think Building Eye in particular is only building permit notifications, but maybe if y'all want to speak to just the breadth that Citygram can facilitate, I think that would be good.
Sure. Yeah, I think we tried to make the tool as general as possible, and we hope that that's a strong suit of it. We imagine things like community groups being able to send out meeting announcements leading up to upcoming meetings, so you could sort of subscribe to community groups in your area. We also really hope that this becomes a platform for collaboration between city departments and brigades and community and other community groups. So you have the subject matter experts that are in the departments, and you have the community groups that are really looking for projects to sink their teeth into and to give back, and that are also useful for their internal projects. And we wanted this also to be a way to demonstrate the power of open data and how that can be done really jointly between the city and the community of consumers. So I think that's my answer there.
Yeah, I'll also jump in here and add that I think we're really interested in the overall power of open data to be able to inform citizens of what's exactly happening in their area. I haven't chatted with Building Eye, but I know that they have a pretty robust platform for specific topics, for example, building permits and things of that nature. I think we're trying to push cities forward in terms of open data where they are currently with their open data portal, and make that data more robust, more meaningful, and going at it from that approach. And I think what Building Eye is doing is also very, very valuable and definitely fulfills a need and a niche. And I think there's a way for all these tools to work together.
Yeah, I'd like to come in and strike a follow up on that last comment from Tiffany. You know, Building Eye is taking one particular category that Citygram can possibly enable. I'd point out that first off, with its nature as kind of open data, open source, a part of the Code for America ecosystem, I would expect there to be some kind of relationship that a government could have with Code for America that would provide a Citygram at an extremely cost competitive rate, partially because if the data is then open, first off, that's a win for Code for America, and second of all, it allows for much greater kind of competition and functionality from specific tools like Building Eye, who are then able to operate on top of the open data. It allows for increased competition and better overall service within a particular community, as opposed to, say, like being in a situation where the city is having a large outlay and then has a vendor relationship to maintain. Forgive me if I'm talking out of school. Sometimes it seems like cities love that, and I don't know if there's anything that I'm going to do to change that, but I would love for there to at least be an alternative. And to me, that's one of the things that telling the story about Citygram is going to make interesting.
Thanks, Jim. And yeah, I think a lot of what we do advocate for is more opportunities for collaboration, and that does include companies as well. So creating atmospheres where there's more competition at a much more affordable rate that operates in a much more agile method is something that we do advocate for. I have another question from Mary, asking a little bit more about the ETL tools. Danny, I believe you addressed this pretty well with saying that the tool and the API converter is very robust and that it will work with any ETL tools. Do you want to maybe go a little bit more in depth about that to see if there are any specific ones that are best for the application?
Sure. I think I'll first draw the distinction between a lot of the, so there's a lot of ETL tools that are used in the process of publishing data, publishing open government data or some type of data. And those are a critical piece of the open data ecosystem. And what we're doing is sort of is coming in after the data has been published, and then building a set of tools around making that data accessible in a variety of formats. And there's a lot of progress in the open data portal, the vendor ecosystem now, that's moving this forward. And we're excited about some things that will be upcoming there. But for the time being, and for maximum flexibility, we sort of designed this. It's not really a novel idea of transforming web content from one format to another as a means of adapting one API to a particular API consumer. It's not really a novel idea, but we've tried to sort of crystallize that into this structure so that it can be reused. And that repository is in the Code for America GitHub organization called Spyglass. It's early on in development, so if that sounds like something that would be interesting to you, or you're a developer or you're interested in that, please reach out, as we're especially looking for concrete use cases that we can kind of design this around. For me, ideally, the end product of having this adapter layer is that the adapters are then generally useful beyond Citygram. So if I just want to access this open this particular data set in some particular format, then it can be reused elsewhere. And it also gives you flexibility around caching, so you can cache in that adapter layer, which saves a network round trip to the Open Data Portal and strain on those resources. And so I think that's the general gist of what we're trying to do. But definitely don't be intimidated by the need to potentially run a separate application, because we're hosting ours, the actual applications that are being run on that Citygram is using for the adapter layer right now are running for free on Heroku, which is just a hosting provider, and we make thousands and thousands of requests to them a day with really almost no problems. So yeah, they don't need to be what's called stateful, or they don't need to have a database or something like this. They can just on the fly transform the data. So it's a really, really lightweight approach.
Great, thanks, Danny, and for going deep into that, and as well as being so considerate with acknowledging the ecosystem of Open Data Portal vendors and the tools that they're also looking to create. I think that really stands as a testament to the ecosystem that is being built around this, because you're taking so much into consideration with other tools that people are already using. So hats off to you. And then I have a couple questions from John Dungan in Tulsa, and he asks how does a new city add to Citygram as a platform? Example, how can we add ETLs to the Citygram platform? So how can they essentially help out with creating this backend, as well as he's also asking, it sounds like you want some people to wait a little bit before people can adapt this, as well as other brigades. And he says he's not good at waiting. So yeah, he's just looking for some sort of timeline. So those two questions from Tulsa.
Yeah. John, I'm not good at waiting either, so I understand. And really, we'd encourage you, if you'd like to deploy your own version of Citygram and set it up, but really there is a cost associated to that, and that's the main thing. That's the primary driver of centralizing this, is so that we can bear the cost of hosting and SMS and email as a community. And right now we are asking for people to wait on us just to finish up some last pieces, and we're hoping to wrap this up this week. And what it will look like is really you'll have a Citygram landing page, and adding a new city will be probably making a new commit to our repo, adding configuration for that city, and then each additional data feed will be another record that we can add into the database of feeds, and we'll link it to that particular city. So when we go to citygram.org/Tulsa, all of your feeds will be there. In terms of contributing to the adapter layer, we are really encouraging folks to use our documentation in the wiki on the Citygram repo and see how that works out for you. The documentation is in Ruby right now. It's really more of a tutorial. Big thank you to Lizzie Diamond for helping me put that together. If you run into any problems, or you want to help us adapt that to another programming language, we would absolutely love that. That would be amazing, because one of the big benefits of pushing this adapter layer outside of Citygram, the application, means that you can write this in any programming language you want. We think that's really important. You shouldn't have to know Ruby in order to contribute to a project like this. So and it may be the case as the ecosystem gets built out, the open data ecosystem, and then sort of hopefully the smaller ecosystem around Citygram, that tools will start to improve, and then we may not actually need write much code at all. It'll be more of a configuration and setup with existing tools that will just allow you to hook right in.
I think what I'd underline out of Danny's comments is we do have some open source code that is out there, and we encourage your review and answering any kind of questions you have about what these things are for, how the pieces fit together, et cetera, because that's any question that the documentation doesn't make clear. We want to get that straight and developed eventually. To me, the absolute best case scenario is that we're able to bring a city online through only community and ecosystem engagement, and that any kind of professional services thing with whatever we get built is either a last resort or an accelerant only. The idea is to get this into the hands of the citizenry, and that's always going to be my goal and the goal of the project. Rule number one is you got to give those people what they want, and they want open data. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'll let that be my last comment. Like, from my perspective, we're working on the conversation as quickly as we can. Like, it involves coordination between multiple professionals, and so we're going as quickly as we can.
Great, thanks, Danny and Jim, for that. And again, thanks everyone for your patience, as this is a very considerate process and one learning on 4.5 years of open source technology and figuring out what the best process is to create a sustainable ecosystem around each application. And so we're really excited for the potential that this model can have across the landscape of applications that come out of Code for America. So again, thank you for your patience, and we look forward to the continued development of the application and seeing one Citygram, many cities, as Danny has said before, as a platform for really elucidating the impact and power of open data. So thanks everyone, Livian and the rest of Team Lexington that couldn't be on today, Danny, Jim, and Tiffany for all your work and continued efforts. And again, this is a production of the Peer Network. We just thank you for staying a couple minutes late. I want to thank the sponsors of the Peer Network, Socrata and Acela. And with that, thank you very much, and I'll be sending out a follow-up email with all of the links to that we discussed. Thank you. Take care.